It is now my pleasure to introduce Simon Johnson, Director of Geoscience. Simon's leadership continues to drive excellence across science programs, fostering collaboration and innovation with an industry outcome focus. He's going to share how we're strengthening GSWA's people, science and impact. Please welcome Simon.
Okay, so I'd like to thank Vaughan for his welcome to country, but I'd also like to thank Chris and Minister Michael for setting my talk up really well. So, you've provided a really good background to everything. So look, while both Chris and Minister Michael were talking, I was sitting there thinking about all the previous open days that we've had, that I've been to. I've been here, I don't know, 18 years now. And the minister's speeches over the past 5 or 6 years have really changed, And it's really a reflection of these state and political, these new state and political drivers, basically towards decarbonisation and new energy systems and critical minerals. And so, as a geological survey, I think we are the principal science survey of Western Australia, of the state, and it's our responsibility to adapt to those changes as well. So, I think you remember, for those who were here 2 years ago at the Open Day, you remember me standing up, sort of giving a similar sort of speech about, being us trying to be agile and adaptive, and whether we're trying to become a live organisation, like the Googles and Amazons, where we're flexible and we can adapt and we can move into new areas as quickly as possible. And so, in that speech, I really talked about changing our staffing profile, the way that we report to each other and the things that we do as a staff. And so in early 2024, we actually restructured. We became less of a flat science organisation, and basically giving our people the opportunity to be more flexible, more adaptable, be more agile, and also give them that opportunity to say, well, look, 80% of your time can be spent on the things that you do normally, but 20% of that can be something that you're interested in or get involved in another project. So really, 1 day a week, you can go and work with another team and do something different. So we're trying to build up that flexibility and adaptability. And along with that came, we've introduced lots of new ways of communicating with each other so that everybody knows what's going on. And in that past year, that's really been working really well. I think we did create a geoscience strategy in 2022, and that really outlined who we are and the things that we do, but it really didn't give us a major direction. And of course, these geopolitical drivers have changed, quite dramatically since we've done that. So we need to adapt our geoscience strategy as well and have a better think about what we do. That got me thinking around, what is it that the fundamental thing that we do as geoscientists at the GSWA, and that's collect and interpret data, really. And so, there are issues around that. And look, we are probably one of the best funded geological surveys in Australia, if not the world. But our budget is still limited. I mean, if you give us another 50 people, another $50 million, we'll do 10 times as much, but it's unrealistic. So it's about managing the money and the people that we have to get the best results for us and the best results for the state. Along with that comes things like, the way that we spend that money is sometimes a bit haphazard, or it's come on a first come, first served basis. We've got issues with, land access. And of course, this also affects the way that we do collaborative research. So, strategically, I sat down and thought about it and wrote this document about the problems we've got with data collection and some of the things of how we can solve that. And the key driver out of all of this really came around long-term planning. I think in this document I outlined something like 20 different things that we could do better as a survey, little tweaks that we could do. Most of it was common sense, and a lot of it's what we're already doing. But the top 5 really were around this. We need to be thinking better about our long-term plans. Basically, what are we going to achieve in the next 5 years? Because if we have a geoscience plan, a really rigid geoscience plan, that we know what we're going to do, where the things that we want to achieve in 5 years, then we actually know what the data is we need to collect for that. And therefore, we know the timing of the collection of that data. And so developing a really strong 5-year geoscience plan will really help set up the way that we collect that data. A long-term procurement plan again, the way that we've been working is it's mostly around the geophysics, which is the big data, the big value acquisition, so things like over $1 million. A lot of the smaller things we do, like geochronology, geochemistry, those things are fairly easy to procure. But again, we would potentially do this on an ad hoc basis. We come up with an idea and say, that's really good, let's do that. And then it would take us a year to procure, to get that procurement underway, get it sorted, and then we could do it. And then we think about it again and say, why don't we do this? So there's a better way to do that. There is a much better way to do that. So let's rethink about how we can do procurement better. A coverage plan. Again, if we know what our geoscience strategy is, our long-term planning is, we can make sure that the areas that we want to map actually have the coverage of data which is adequate for us to go in and do the best job in terms of our mapping. But equally, if we're agile, if we've got to set up a procurement plan which is really flexible and easy to use, then when something emerges, we can actually go procure that data for that emerging issue really quickly. And of course, these things reflect on our collaboration. So we do a lot of external collaboration with universities and industry. And again, that's kind of on an ad hoc basis. Again, it's a bit of a first come, first served. It's based around good ideas. So let's think about how we do that in the future, how we do that better, how we get better value for that. And then infrastructure. So that's about, we use a lot of machinery. We already have a high logger, so maybe we can think about bringing some of that equipment inside the geological survey. And so, we'll talk about each of these individually now. So I will come back to this at the end of the talk, and we're still in the planning phase of what that will actually look like in terms of science. Effectively, we need to sort of address these big state strategies, things like Diversified WA and our 10-year science and technology plan, our decarbonisation and our critical minerals and new energy systems. And so not only is developing a geoscience plan good for academia and government to understand what we're doing, it's actually really good for our people to understand what we're doing. Everybody does the thing that they do. And if you understand your business as usual, how that fits into something bigger and is driving the state's goals, that gives everybody impetus to do it better and to really achieve those goals. I think that our science plan eventually should be public-facing, it should be open, it should be out there, and potentially we update it every year because the geopolitical landscape changes, other things arise, and so we do need to be flexible around that too. So as I said, with our procurement, it's been generally a little bit ad hoc. We have it when funds are available, and it's really those really large procurements of basically geophysical programs, whether that's active seismic or airborne geophysical programs, airborne electromagnetics and things like that. The solution to this is really to create a 10-year, a very long period panel tender. So we actually do a procurement, we do it once. We have a panel of people, of companies on that, active seismic people, passive, magnetotelluric, deep crustal, AMR, AEM, those kind of programs, so that when we need to do something, we can actually go to that panel. We don't need to do a procurement every single time we want to do one of those programs. So that's actually underway. So that's really good. We're already in the process of doing that. Project datasets and state coverage. So our state is pretty well covered in terms of AMR and gravity. With our AMR, we've got a minimum standard of 400-metre line spacing. In other areas, it's reduced down to about 2. And we're in a current program of some areas increasing that to 100-metre line spacing. And with our gravity, it's a nominal sort of 4-kilometre spacing, but we're reducing that to 2.5 and in some areas less than 2. So again, with the flexibility of that procurement, that allows us to say, there's a new greenfields area that I think we should be collecting 100-metre line spacing data on. Let's go out there, let's fly those planes and let's get that data in and let's react to industry and everything else that's going on. But also, you can see that there's 2 squares, the Naria and the aileron out there, and that's where we're currently mapping. And that also, not only does it help industry, it actually helps us because we actually then be able to get to produce better maps. So if we know, for example, in with our 5-year geoscience plan, that, I don't know, maybe in 3 years we want to go to the Patterson, then we can start that procurement now. We can fly that survey so that when we go to do the mapping, that we have the data ready for us to make the best maps possible. And then around our collaborative research, most of this has come, we're usually approached by academia or industry. It's usually we've got a good idea and we've got a good student and we'd like to look at some lithium stuff and it's in WA. And we go, yeah, that's something that I think the Geological Survey should be involved with. But the reality is that, again, it's a first come, first served basis. When the money's gone, good ideas come in and we say, sorry, we can't do this because we don't have any money. So we need to think about this better, again. And so what I would like to do is actually flip this 180 degrees. If we know what our geoscience plan is, or our long-term goals are, we know what skills we have in the survey. We know the people that we have. So actually, our collaboration should be built around our gaps, our skill gaps. And so I think that obviously we'll keep some money for good ideas, because good ideas are always good ideas. But I think we would like to go out to industry and academia and say, hey, look, these are the areas that GSWA would like to collaborate on, because these are the skills that we don't have in the survey. And so in those collaborations, I think, again, GSWA needs to play a bigger, stronger role so that we can actually bring those skills in-house. We can teach our people those skills so they no longer become a skills gap. And we've already touched on, Chris touched a little bit on infrastructure. We use a lot of machinery. We do a lot of cutting edge science. And so the plan here is certainly not the blue sky stuff. We'll always collaborate with the John Delata Centre and UWA. We're not talking about bringing a shrimp or a Cameco ion probe into the building, but certainly, we've run a HiLogger 3 and we've now updated to the HiLogger 4. This is our business as usual. This is our precompetitive data set collection. This is how we collect that kind of data. And so bringing in a test scan integrated mineral analyzer is key for us, because it means that this machine will run basically 24/7, 365 days a year for us. And so what will we be doing with that machine? Well, all of our samples from WA Array, we're extracting the heavy minerals. So for 1,500 sites around the state at 40-kilometre spacing, we'll be producing a heavy mineral map of Australia. But also, this is critical for us in our circular economy. This is looking at mine tailings. What's in the abandoned mine tailings? So this is about characterising what's there. Is there copper or cobalt or antimony that can be extracted from those mine wastes? And again, you know that we have 2 slide scanners, so we're producing digital data of every slide that we have in our collection, both plain polarised light, cross-polarised light, but also we can throw everything through the TEMA, and that will produce you a mineralogical map as well. So actually now we're not only getting the light images, we're getting the chemical information from those thin sections as well. And then something I wanted to point out is that we're not owning the petrophysical logger, but we have integrated CSIRO's mobile petrophysical logger. We've thrown it out to Kalgoorlie. We've got it for 9 months, and we're going to be throwing core from different projects and things through that machine to collect new data, which we can then interpret alongside our HiLogger data and our geochemistry. So bringing that technology in-house is something that we're very keen on doing, but not the blue sky stuff. So what about our 5-year geoscience plan? Well, again, 2 years I actually talked about this. We have our state, national and global geopolitical drivers here, and I think that moving forwards, GSWA will be talking to 3 main themes, and it will be one which is things like materials critical for the energy transition. We'll be looking at carbon mitigation and geological storage, and hydrogen as a future energy source. And so those things are already underway at GSWA. We've been doing those things for a while. And just to let you know, those 3 things do actually map into Western Australia's 10-year science and technology plan. So basically, they've outlined mineral supply and adding value, which is really our critical minerals, and the clean energy and decarbonisation. So Does it mean that we change the things that we do, that the staff that we have, do we need new people, do we change and do something different? Well, actually, no, it actually doesn't. But what it does is give our people the idea of, okay, this is what I do as business as usual, this is how it maps up into those bigger, broader themes. So what do we do as a geological survey? Well, look, our remit is to collect pre-competitive data at the Cradon province scale. So on the right-hand side there is a typical mineral systems map, if you like, which shows time running upwards and the scale sort of across the bottom. And geological surveys are sort of really interested in that middle part, the Cradon to province, and probably pushing into the district scale. When we start looking at the actual mineral deposits themselves, that's probably something that we would do as a collaboration. We're not. There's less value in collecting pre-competitive data on individual deposits rather than us working across the state. So we take that data and we integrate that data and we build information and we build knowledge from it. And so the idea then is that, you know, we need to build this back into that mineral system setting. And so this is a different way of looking at that. So this is Sandy Okapinti's mineral system diamond. And really it breaks it down into, you know, if you like, 4 main components. One which is about the lithospheric architecture. One's about the geodynamic throttle, the drivers of the energy system in there. The depositional site, so how does all those metals get trapped? And then the preservation bit, so how do things get preserved? And so actually it was John Wronski at our Geological Survey Liaison Committee that sort of suggested that the way we could do this, the way that we could map our business as usual up into those bigger, broader themes is through sort of these science questions. Because we are a geoscience organisation, most of the people doing this work are geoscientists, and they live by answering questions and particularly, you know, geoscience stuff. So if we look at that top part, which is basically the crustal architecture, this brings in everything we're doing through WA Array. But so it's things like looking at lithosphere maps, MOHO maps, looking at the major crustal structures, building up a picture of the architecture of our crust and lithosphere, but also looking at things like mantle composition through time. So this is about, if you like, craton forming and destruction processes. So that would be one of the main sort of science questions, if you like, that team would be sort of looking at and driving. Then if we look on the other side about the geodynamic throttle, so this is the things about how has the West Australian geodynamics changed through time. So basically, where are your arcs, where are your oceans, where are your continental rifts, where are the fertile parts of the crust? And so mapping those out and understanding where they are and where they occur through time is actually really quite critical for understanding the bigger, broader scale mineral system. And so what we potentially would like to do as a output for this is produce a series of geodynamic time slices, which could go into the discovery portal, and you can say, you know, from the early Archean, this is what it looked like, this is where your arcs are, this is where your fertile parts of the crust are, and play that through time, basically back to present day. Then if we look at things like fertility, now, we probably won't go down to looking at individual mineral deposits and things like that, but what we can do is look at the fertility of magmatic systems, things like ultramafic mafic systems, felsic systems. This is what we've been doing for a long time. This is our geochemical barcoding. So we're not planning to do anything different here. This is just our business as usual, wrapped up in a slightly different flavour, in a different way of thinking about things. And of course, you know, we talk about sedimentary hosted copper systems, so we need to be looking at our, you know, fertile systems in our basins as well. So that's bringing in, you know, another big component there. And then preservation is obviously very important because everything gets uplifted and eroded, there's no deposit left. So that's about understanding our geodynamic history to present day, particularly, if you like, the breakup of Gondwana. How has the transition of Australia moved through the tropics, deep weathering, regolith formation? What do deposits look like inside the regolith? What are the distal footprints? How do we identify those? And again, with our heavy minerals, how are they being transported through those sedimentary and regolith systems, so that when we do get the data from our WA array, we actually know how to trace that back to look for new deposits. That's only just a one really small snapshot of what we're doing. It's obviously it's only that mineral system side. It's not the hydrogen side, and it's not the decarbonation side. And this is still a work in progress. But I hope that by early next year, we'll have this really formed, and this will be on the website. This will be publicly available. You'll all be able to see, and we'll be very transparent in what we're doing. So, thank you.